What if the most sacred object in human history wasn't religious at all? What if the elaborate instructions given to Moses on Mount Sinai weren't rituals, but blueprints? For 3,000 years, we have been told the Ark of the Covenant was a container for the Ten Commandments, a symbol of a covenant between man and the divine. But if you strip away the theology and look strictly at the engineering, a terrifying picture emerges. Gold. Wood. Gold. Conductor. Insulator. Conductor. That is not the description of a box. That is the description of a capacitor. A device designed to store massive amounts of electricity. And the history books are full of stories, people struck dead by touching it. Armies decimated by mysterious tumors when they stole it. Strange glowing lights appearing between the golden wings on top. So, here is the question we need to answer. Did the ancients accidentally build a battery? Or were they given a weapon they didn't understand, a radiological device that we have mistaken for magic? Let's go back to the book of Exodus, chapter 25. The instructions are incredibly specific. God doesn't just say build a box. He gives dimensions. He specifies materials. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out. And in the middle? Shittim wood. Acacia. To an electrical engineer, this is an anomaly. Why gold inside and out? Why the wood in the middle? In physics, this arrangement creates what is known as a capacitor. You have a positive plate, which is the inner gold, a negative plate, the outer gold, and a dielectric insulator, the wood. The ark measured roughly 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. If you calculate the surface area of that much gold plating, separated by a dense, dry wood, you have the capacity to store thousands of volts of static electricity. Think about where they were. The Sinai Desert. Extremely dry heat. The perfect environment for static charge. The Israelites wandered with this object for 40 years. The wool curtains of the tabernacle rubbing against the structure, the friction of the desert sand. The ark wasn't just a box. It was a giant Leyden jar. It was constantly charging. And what happens when a capacitor is fully charged, and someone who isn't grounded touches it? Discharge. Instant. Fatal. The Bible tells us about Uzzah, a man who, with good intentions, reached out to steady the ark when the oxen stumbled. The text says the anger of the Lord burned against him and he died on the spot. Mainstream theologians call it divine judgment. But looking at the physics, it sounds exactly like high-voltage electrocution. Uzzah became the ground wire for a charge that had been building for weeks. But electricity implies a terrestrial origin. It implies natural physics. There is another theory. One that suggests the ark wasn't just storing power, but containing something. Something hot. Let's look at the Levites, the only people authorized to approach the Arkansas. They didn't just walk in. They wore specific vestments. The ephod. The breastplate of stones. Why does a priest need a breastplate? Some researchers argue that the detailed descriptions of the high priest's clothing resemble a primitive form of radiation shielding. Heavy woven fabrics. Precious stones and metals covering the vital organs. And what happened to those who didn't have the shielding? Consider the story of the Philistines. In the first book of Samuel, they capture the ark in battle. They take it to their cities as a trophy. Within days, the people in those cities break out in emerods, tumors, boils. The text describes a plague that caused panic and death. Tumors? Skin lesions? Hair loss? These aren't the symptoms of a spiritual curse. These are the textbook symptoms of acute radiation poisoning. The Philistines moved the ark from city to city. Ashdod, Gath, Ekron. Everywhere it went, the sickness followed. It acted like a leaking reactor core. Eventually, they were so terrified they put it on a cart and sent it back to the Israelites, staying as far away from it as possible. Was the ark housing a power source? An isotope given to Moses to power a device he couldn't possibly comprehend? If the gold was a conductor, maybe it wasn't there to hold electricity in. Maybe it was there to keep the radiation shielded. So we have a capacitor. Or a containment unit. But for what purpose? The Bible calls the lid of the ark the mercy seat. Two golden cherubim, angels, facing each other, their wings touching in the center. It is written, "There I will meet with you, and I will speak with you from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim." From between the wings. In radio technology, two conductive poles separated by a specific gap is called a spark gap transmitter. That creates an arc. When the arc was active, a cloud appeared between the wings. The Shekinah glory. A glowing, luminous plasma. If you generate enough voltage between two gold points, you ionize the air. You create plasma. It glows. It hums. Was the Ark of the Covenant a communication device? A transdimensional radio? Moses would enter the tent, the cloud would descend, and he would receive instructions. Not visions. Instructions. This changes everything. It suggests that the 10 Commandments weren't just laws written on stone. They were the operating agreement for the machine. Do not approach unless authorized. Wear the protective gear. Isolate the device. Perhaps the rituals were actually safety protocols. Protocols designed to keep a primitive people safe from advanced technology they had no business possessing. But here is the most disturbing part of the story. The ark disappears. After the Babylonians destroy the temple in 587 BC, the ark vanishes from the biblical record. There is no record of it being destroyed. No record of it being melted down. Some say it's in a church in Ethiopia, guarded by a single monk who, coincidentally, usually dies young, often with cataracts and lung issues. Others say it's buried in a tunnel system beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. If it was just a wooden box covered in gold, it would have rotted away centuries ago. But if it is what the evidence suggests, if it is a capacitor that has been sitting in the dark, dry earth for 2,500 years, or if it contains a fuel source with a half-life of 10,000 years, then it isn't just an artifact. It is a dormant weapon. Archaeologists are digging for it right now. Governments are searching for it. We assume that if we find it, we will put it in a museum. We will put it behind glass and shine lights on it. But we are forgetting the most important variable. If the Ark of the Covenant is a machine, what happens when it wakes up?